They told me to stop being dramatic right after the second slap until I pulled up the screen in front of all our relatives. I said exactly one sentence, and the entire birthday room went dead silent. You want strong, let's see who's really strong when these files open. When my brother's laughter died, someone knocked on the door. Not a birthday guest, but the person I'd invited to end this charade. When the judge's order was read aloud at 11:45 p.m., my mother's perfectly composed face finally cracked. My name is Ava Sinclair, and I turned 31 at exactly 7 p.m. on a Thursday evening in the Harbor Light Restaurant's private dining room, though celebration would be the wrong word for what happened that night. The room smelled of expensive wine and my mother Lydia's signature perfume, that suffocating blend of jasmine and control she'd worn since I was 12. She'd arranged everything the seating chart that placed me between disapproving aunts, the menu I hadn't chosen, the toast she'd written for my stepfather Gordon to deliver about their accomplished daughter, even the cake vanilla with strawberry filling, though I'd been allergic to strawberries since childhood, screamed that this wasn't my party. It was theirs. Ava's being difficult again, my mother announced to the table when I declined the third glass of wine. My shift at Nella Northbridge Emergency Logistics Agency started at 5 a.m., and coordinating disaster response required a clear head, but explaining that would mean acknowledging I had responsibilities beyond being their prop. She thinks she's too good for family time, my brother Ethan chimed in, already 4 drinks deep and recording everything on his phone. At 28, he still lived in the townhouse our parents bought him, still introduced himself as an entrepreneur at parties, still laughed that particular laugh when he smelled blood in the water. Big, strong military girl, too tough for wine with Mommy. The relatives tittered. Aunt Patricia muttered something about my priorities. Uncle James made a joke about my empty ring finger. I have to drive, I said quietly. And work tomorrow. Work. Lydia pronounced it like profanity. Always work with you. Do you know what your cousin Jennifer was doing at 31 raising 2 beautiful children? But you... She gestured at my pressed blazer, my minimal makeup, my short practical nails. You play soldier? I served for 6 years. Mom, that's not playing. The first slap came from her, quick and sharp across my left cheek. The room gasped, then went silent, waiting to see if I'd crumble like I did at 16, at 21, at 25. Don't you dare correct me, she hissed. Gordon stood up slowly, deliberately. My stepfather moved like a glacier, inevitable, crushing, cold. Apologize to your mother. For what? Telling the truth. The second slap came from him, harder, making my ears ring. Ethan's laughter erupted immediately, his phone still recording. She thinks she's strong. He wheezed between gulps of air. Look at her face. I didn't touch my burning cheeks. Didn't cry. Didn't give them what they wanted. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app I'd been updating for 3 months. The screen showed a list dates, amounts, account numbers, transfers from grandfather's trust to accounts ending in Ethan's social security digits, deposits that matched Gordon's business payments, withdrawals timed to my deployments. Ava's reviewing her little lists again. Ethan mocked, but his laughter had an edge now. I looked directly at my mother. Birthday number 31. My gift to myself, the truth. The room held its breath. Someone's fork clattered against china. In the corner, Mrs. Carver from next door had stopped pretending not to watch. My mother recovered first. Of course. We're done here. Ava's clearly having one of her episodes. Episodes? That's what she called it when I questioned anything. When I noticed discrepancies. When I refused to sign papers without reading them. Episodes. Like clarity was a mental illness and blindness was the cure. I stood up, steady despite the ringing in my ears. Yes, we're done. But not how you think. As I walked toward the door, Ethan called out, running away again. Sis, just like you ran to the army. I turned back, memorizing the scene: my mother's perfectly styled hair, my stepfather's $1,000 suit, my brother's smirk. the relatives who'd watched two parents strike their adult daughter and done nothing. The birthday cake sat untouched, its strawberry filling bleeding through the white frosting like a wound. "I'm not running," I said. "I'm preparing." The last thing I saw before leaving was my phone screen, still displaying those numbers. $600,000, 7 years of transfers, one forged signature that started it all. Happy birthday to me. The first time my mother broke me. I was 8 years old and had won the district science fair. She'd smiled for the photos, then spent the drive home explaining how my volcano was pedestrian and how Jennifer's daughter had won nationals at 7. By the time we pulled into our Northbridge driveway, I'd learned that achievement meant nothing unless it made Lydia Sinclair look good. Gordon entered our lives when I was 10, bringing his own brand of discipline. Where my mother wielded emotional scalpels, he preferred blunt force. "Structure builds character," he'd say, implementing meal schedules, study hours, and permission slips for using the bathroom after 9 p. Ethan, 3 years younger and male, somehow escaped these rules. "Boys need room to grow," Gordon explained when I questioned why my brother could eat whenever he wanted while I measured portions. The military felt like freedom after that house. During basic training, when drill sergeants screamed in my face, I almost laughed they had nothing on Lydia's whispered criticisms over family dinners. In Afghanistan, managing supply chains under mortar fire, I discovered what actual strength looked like. It wasn't control, it was competence. But families have a way of pulling you back. When I returned home at 26, processing my discharge papers and planning my transition to civilian logistics work, my mother presented me with just a few forms. "Temporary power of attorney," she explained, sliding papers across her marble kitchen island. "In case something happens while you're deployed. Standard family protection." I was exhausted, jet-lagged, still adjusting to streets that didn't hide IEDs. The papers looked official. My mother's concern seemed genuine. Gordon nodded approvingly from his leather chair. Even Ethan managed to look serious. "We just want to help manage things," Lydia said. "You know how complicated finances can be. Remember when you forgot to pay your credit card that one time in college? One missed payment when I was 19, and she'd never let me forget it. I signed where she pointed, initializing pages I should have read, trusting because that's what daughters did. The Nella job came through 6 months later, emergency logistics coordinator, using my military experience to manage disaster response supply chains. Real work, important work. But when I mentioned it at Sunday dinner, my mother's face soured. "Government work is so common," she said, cutting her salmon with surgical precision. "Couldn't you do something more? Elevated marketing, perhaps, or real estate. Something where you could wear proper clothes. I'll be saving lives, Mom." "You'll be a bureaucrat." She set down her fork. "But I suppose we can't all have Ethan's entrepreneurial spirit." Ethan, who'd failed out of 3 colleges and whose import business consisted of reselling knockoff sneakers online, preened at the compliment. That's when I started noticing things. His new Mercedes, the renovation of his townhouse, Gordon's sudden expansion of his financial consulting firm despite losing his biggest client. Then, 2 weeks ago, while organizing my apartment, I found the carbon copy of those papers I'd signed. The temporary power of attorney, except someone had attached an addendum. The dates were wrong. The signature was mine, but not traced, maybe, or digitally copied. The temporary had become permanent, and the scope had expanded from emergency medical decisions to full financial authority, including but not limited to trust fund disbursements. My grandfather's trust, the one he'd left specifically to me, bypassing my mother entirely, a fact she'd never forgiven. $700,000 meant for my future, bleeding out in monthly transfers I'd never authorized. My phone buzzed, pulling me from the memory. An unknown number had sent a photo, a bank statement with my name, showing a withdrawal of $50,000 on a date when I'd been in Kandahar. The signature was perfect. Too perfect. The same slightly tilted A appeared in exact repetition across 3 documents. I enlarged the image, studying the mechanical precision of the forgery. My real signature varied. Sometimes the A in Ava connected to the V. Sometimes it didn't. This one never varied. Someone had made a stamp of my name and used it like a credit card. The text below the image read, "Check your mother's home office. Bottom drawer, behind the tax files." No name. No explanation. Just directions to what I'd been looking for without knowing it. Tomorrow. I'd visit my parents' house while they attended their country club luncheon. Tonight. I sat in my small apartment, staring at the photo from my birthday party that Ethan had posted on social media moments after being slapped, still standing straight while he laughed. The caption read, "Sis getting what she deserves. Family drama, birthday girl blues." 17 likes. 3 laughing emojis from cousins. A comment from Aunt Patricia. Some people never learn their place. I screenshotted everything. Evidence had been my job in the military supply chain documentation, resource allocation papers, proof of delivery under fire. Now I was building a different kind of case, one signature at a time. The spreadsheet grew like a cancer diagnosis, each entry making the situation worse and impossible to ignore. I'd started the analysis at 4 a.m., unable to sleep after the birthday disaster, cross-referencing dates with my old deployment schedules. The pattern was surgical in its precision. January 15th, 2018. I'd been coordinating supply drops outside Kabul. That same day, $30,000 left my trust fund for Ethan's business venture. March 3rd, 2019. Running logistics for disaster relief in Puerto Rico. $45,000 transferred to an account matching Gordon's business tax ID. November 27th, 2020. Quarantined on base with COVID. $60,000 moved to purchase investment property, the same suburban house now titled in Ethan's name. Every withdrawal coincided with my absences. Every signature appeared on dates when I'd been thousands of miles away, sometimes without internet access. They'd studied my schedule like predators tracking prey. Marta Ruiz at First National Bank of Northbridge had been my grandfather's account manager. When I walked into her office at 9:30 a.m., she recognized me immediately. "Ava, how's the family? Your mother was just here last week." "That's actually why I'm here." I placed my military ID and driver's license on her desk. "I need to review all transactions on the Sinclair Family Trust." Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. "Your mother usually handles—" "The trust is in my name. Only my name." She pulled up the accounts, her face shifting from professional warmth to concern as she scrolled. "There's a permanent power of attorney on file. Updated in— let me see. Yes, with an addendum added in 2019. May I see the original documents?" She glanced toward her manager's empty office, then back at me. "I shouldn't, but your grandfather was special to us. He helped my family when we first came to Illinois." The file she produced made my stomach clench. The temporary power of attorney I'd signed was there, but attached to it were 3 additional pages I'd never seen. The signature on each was identical, not just similar, but exactly identical, down to the pixel if you overlaid them. "Marta," I said quietly, "have you ever seen signatures match this perfectly across multiple documents?" She studied them, pulling out a magnifying glass from her drawer. "In 20 years of banking? No. Even when people try to sign consistently, there's variation. This is copied. I can't make that assessment officially." But she photocopied everything and handed me the stack. "However, I can suggest you speak with document verification specialists, and perhaps secure your remaining assets immediately. Only $90,000 remained of the $700,000 my grandfather left me." I moved it to a new account that afternoon, one requiring in-person verification for any transaction. Back in my apartment, I laid out the evidence like mission planning: financial records on the left, forged documents in the center, property transfers on the right. The suburban house, a 4-bedroom colonial in Riverside Glen, had been purchased with my money but titled to Ethan. The renovation costs came from my trust. Even the property taxes were paid from periodic withdrawals marked as family support. My phone rang. Iris Shaw introduced herself in a voice that suggested she'd seen worse and fixed it. "I specialize in financial fraud investigation," she said, "particularly family cases. I believe we have a mutual friend who suggested you call me." "Who? Does it matter? Can you meet tomorrow at 2 p.m.? Bring everything." That evening, I drove past the Riverside Glen house. Ethan's Mercedes sat in the driveway next to a new BMW his girlfriend's, probably bought with my deployment bonuses. Through the lit windows, I could see the 60-inch TV, the renovated kitchen, the life built on my service and sacrifice. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Your behavior last night was unacceptable. We're having a family meeting Sunday at 4 p.m. You will attend, you will apologize, and we will discuss your obvious mental health issues. Dr. Morrison has agreed to evaluate you." Dr. Morrison, their golf buddy who'd prescribed Xanax to half the country club wives. The same doctor who'd written a letter suggesting I had adjustment disorders when I'd questioned irregularities in my trust fund 2 years ago. I forwarded the text to my new email account, the one I'd created for documentation. Then I responded, "I'll be there." Let them think they were still in control. Let them plan their intervention, their psychiatric ambush, their next move in a game they didn't know had already changed. I opened my laptop and began typing a timeline. Every dated transaction matched with my location, my duty status, my inability to have signed anything. At the bottom, I added a single line: fraud amount $610,000. Criminal penalties, up to 20 years federal prison. The anonymous text came through at midnight. Check Gordon's home office. The original stamps are in his antique cigar box. Your brother doesn't know they exist. This time, I recognized the phone number's area code. It belonged to someone at the bank. Marta, maybe, or someone else who'd watched my family steal from me for 7 years and finally decided enough was enough. Tomorrow, Iris Shaw would help me build the legal case. Sunday, I'd walk into that family meeting with ammunition they never imagined I'd possess. But tonight, I sat with the evidence of their betrayal spread across my coffee table, planning the systematic destruction of everything they'd built on my back. The trust fund my grandfather left me hadn't just been money. It had been his faith that I'd become something more than my mother's dress-up doll or Gordon's controlled asset. They'd stolen the money, but they'd also stolen his belief in me. That theft that one I couldn't forgive. Noah Delgado's office occupied the 3rd floor of a converted Victorian in downtown Northbridge, the kind of place that whispered competence without screaming wealth. His assistant had scheduled me for 2:30 p.m., right after my meeting with Iris Shaw, who'd provided the forensic ammunition that would make this legal war possible. "Your investigator's report is thorough," Noah said, spreading Iris's findings across his conference table. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the kind of careful precision that suggested he'd learned law the hard way. Signature analysis confirms forgery across 17 documents. The digital metadata shows the signatures were copied and pasted from a single source document, likely the original power of attorney you signed. "Can we prove it in court?" "We can do better than that." He pulled out a legal pad, sketching a timeline. "Illinois law allows for emergency asset preservation orders in cases of active fraud. We file tonight, hearing tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Judge Maren Cole presiding. She doesn't tolerate financial abuse, especially within families. What do you need from me?" "Witnesses. Anyone who can testify to your family's pattern of control, financial manipulation, or knowledge of the forgeries." I thought of Mrs. Carver, who'd lived next door to my parents for 15 years and heard every argument through their shared garden wall. Jules Park, my colleague at Nella, who'd once seen my mother intercept my work emails when she'd dropped by my office. The bank manager who'd processed those suspicious transfers. "I can get witnesses." "Good. Now, here's how Sunday will go." Noah's pen moved across paper with military efficiency. "You'll attend their meeting wearing this." He produced a small recording device disguised as a button. Illinois is a two-party consent state for recordings, but there's an exception for gathering evidence of ongoing crimes. Every word they say about the trust, the forgeries, the house, all admissible. They want to have me psychologically evaluated. Let them try. Once you're declared mentally competent, which you clearly are, it actually strengthens our case. They're attempting to gaslight you about financial crimes. Judge Cole will find that very interesting. We spent 3 hours preparing my script, the careful phrases that would prompt confession without alerting suspicion. Noah coached me like a director preparing an actor for the performance of their life. Don't accuse. Ask questions that make them explain. I'm confused about the trust fund works better than you stole from me. Let them hang themselves with their own words. By 5 p.m., I was back in my apartment, calling witnesses. Mrs. Carver answered on the first ring. Ava, dear, I saw what happened at your birthday. I've been waiting 40 years for someone to stand up to your mother. Would you testify to what you've witnessed? Honey, I've been keeping notes since you were 12. The time she locked you outside in January because you got an A-. The college fund she drained for Ethan's 3rd rehab stint. I've got dates, times, and photos through the window. Jules was equally ready. Remember when your mom came to the office and tried to access your computer? I have the security footage. She was trying to send emails from your account to the bank. Even Marta from the bank called me back, unofficially. I can't testify directly without a subpoena, but if asked under oath about suspicious patterns in the trust fund transfers, I'd have to tell the truth. And the truth is that every transaction happened when you were deployed or traveling for work. Saturday night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table, arranging and rearranging documents. The emergency preservation order was filed. The witnesses were ready. The recording device was tested and functional. In 36 hours, I'd walk into my childhood home for what might be the last time. My phone lit up with a text from Ethan. Mom says you're coming tomorrow. Don't embarrass yourself again. Also, nice try moving the trust money Mom already knows. She has friends at every bank in town. I smiled at his arrogance, his assumption that I'd moved the money within Northbridge. The new account was in Chicago, under the protection of a bank that didn't golf with Gordon or lunch with Lydia, but let him think they were still 3 steps ahead. Another text. This one from the anonymous number. Your mother had Dr. Morrison prepare involuntary commitment papers. They're planning to have you held for 72 hours for evaluation. Don't go alone. I forwarded the message to Noah, who responded immediately. Bring my paralegal. She'll wait in the car with police on speed dial. If they try involuntary commitment without cause, that's kidnapping. The trap was baited on both sides now. They thought they were drawing me into a psychiatric ambush. Instead, I was walking them into a legal minefield where every word would be evidence, every threat would be documented, and every lie would cost them years of freedom. I looked at the photo of my grandfather on my bookshelf, the one where he's in his army uniform, young and fierce and uncompromising. Almost there, Grandpa, I whispered. Almost time to show them what real strength looks like. Tomorrow would be the performance, but Sunday would be the reckoning. The dining room was staged like a courtroom, my mother at the head of the table, Gordon to her right, Ethan to her left, and a single chair positioned at the far end, isolated and lower than the others. They'd actually removed the usual chair and brought in one from the basement. The symbolism wasn't subtle. Sit, my mother commanded at exactly 4 p.m., not bothering with pleasantries. The November light through the windows cast everything in gray, matching the mood she'd cultivated. On the sideboard, her best china was displayed but unused. This wasn't a meal. It was an execution. I sat, feeling the recording device Noah had given me pressing against my ribs. Outside, his paralegal waited in a sedan with the engine running. Before we begin, Gordon said, producing a folder, we need you to sign these forms acknowledging your recent erratic behavior and agreeing to seek help. I didn't touch the papers. What kind of help? The kind you clearly need. Ethan smirked, already live streaming on his phone to what he thought was a private group. He didn't know I'd joined under a fake account. Normal people don't make paranoid accusations about their families. You mean accusations about the trust fund? My mother's eye twitched the tell she'd never managed to control. What trust fund, dear? You mean the money your grandfather left for the family. The money he left to me. Only me. His will was very specific. Wills can be interpreted many ways, Gordon said smoothly. As your power of attorney. Temporary power of attorney. For medical emergencies during deployment. Actually, my mother pulled out her own folder. It's quite permanent. Has been since 2019. You signed the updates yourself. When was that exactly? March 15th, she said without checking the documents. Memorized, rehearsed. March 15th, 2019. I was in Syria. No internet for 3 weeks. Combat operations. You came back briefly. Gordon lied with practiced ease. Signed papers. You were traumatized. Probably don't remember. So traumatized I signed perfect signatures, each one exactly identical. Ethan laughed too loud. She's really losing it. Listen to her conspiracy theories about signatures. Is that why you bought a house with my money? Ethan, because I'm crazy. The live stream shook as his hand trembled. I bought that house with my business profits. Which business? The one that's never filed taxes or the one registered to a P.O. box that doesn't receive mail? You've been stalking me. I've been investigating fraud. There's a difference. I turned to my mother. Just like there's a difference between power of attorney and forgery. She stood up slowly, her chair scraping against hardwood. You ungrateful child. We gave you everything. Structure, discipline, a future. You gave me PTSD before the Army ever could. How dare you? The locked closets when I was 8, the food restrictions at 12, the college fund you drained for Ethan's rehab. Oh yes, Mrs. Carver told me about that. That neighbor is senile. She has photographs, through windows, date stamped. Gordon's control cracked slightly. You've been building some kind of case against your own family, against criminals who happen to share my DNA. We only took what was necessary. My mother snapped, then caught herself. I mean, we only managed what you couldn't handle. Managed, is that what you call transferring $600,000 while I was serving our country? You weren't using it, Ethan blurted. It was just sitting there while you played soldier, and so you admit you took it. We relocated funds for family investments, Gordon corrected quickly. All perfectly legal under the power of attorney. The one I signed, or the 3 additional pages someone added later. My mother walked around the table, approaching my chair. You're sick, Ava, doctor. Morrison is already aware of your condition. He's prepared to help you, even if it requires inpatient treatment. Involuntary commitment for asking about my stolen inheritance. For your own good, she said, reaching for my arm. You can go voluntarily, or I pulled out my phone and hit send on the pre-written email. Too late. Everything just went to my lawyer, the state attorney's office, and the fraud division at First National Bank. The room froze. Ethan's live stream captured his face, draining of color. You recorded this. Gordon stood, his practiced calm finally breaking. You recorded us without consent. Illinois law allows recording of suspected criminal activity. My lawyer will explain it to you. He should be receiving the files right. Now. My phone buzzed. Noah's response. Received. Judge Cole issued emergency asset freeze 17 minutes ago. Effective immediately. I stood up, matching my mother's height in heels she'd never let me wear growing up. The Riverside house is frozen. Your accounts are frozen. The investigation starts tomorrow morning. You can't, Ethan started. Actually, I can, just like you could forge my signature. Except I'm doing it legally. The doorbell rang, cutting through the silence like a gunshot. That'll be the people I invited for dinner, I said. You should answer it. Mom, it's your house. For now. Noah Delgado entered first, his presence immediately shifting the room's dynamic from family meeting to legal proceeding. Behind him, 2 uniformed officers from the Ravenstone County Sheriff's Department stood in the doorway, their authority unmistakable even without drawn weapons. "Mrs. Sinclair," Noah said, his voice carrying the weight of judicial authority. "Mr. Hale? Mr. Sinclair. I'm here to serve you with emergency preservation orders issued by Judge Marin Cole at 3:47 p.m. today." My mother's composure shattered like her favorite Waterford crystal. "You can't just walk into my home. Actually, your daughter invited us. As she's a documented resident who receives mail at this address, she has the legal right to admit guests." Noah handed her the sealed documents. "These orders freeze all assets associated with the Sinclair Family Trust, including the property at 47 Riverside Glen, all associated bank accounts, and any transfers made from said trust after January 1st, 2018. Gordon tried his businessman's bluff. "This is harassment." "We'll have your license." "You're welcome to file a complaint with the Illinois Bar Association," Noah said calmly. "In the meantime, Officers Martinez and Walsh are here to secure certain documents as specified in the preservation order." "What documents?" Ethan's voice cracked, his phone still recording but his hand shaking so badly the image was unwatchable. "Financial records, computers, and—" Noah consulted his papers. "Any stamps, signature examples, or documents containing Ava Sinclair's signature or purported signature?" I watched my family realize the trap had already sprung. They'd been so focused on their psychiatric ambush they'd never considered I might bring legal backup. "The cigar box," I said quietly. "Gordon keeps it in his office, bottom drawer of the mahogany desk." Gordon lunged toward the hallway, but Officer Martinez stepped smoothly into his path. "Sir, I need you to remain here while we execute the order. This is theft." My mother shrieked, her perfect composure finally, completely destroyed. "She's stealing from her own family." "No, Mom," I said. "I'm recovering what was stolen from me. There's a difference." Officer Walsh returned from Gordon's office carrying the antique cigar box. Inside, visible to everyone, were 3 rubber stamps each bearing a different version of my signature, the smoking gun, displayed like evidence at trial. "Interesting hobby, Gordon," I said, collecting signatures. His face had gone gray. "Those are— I was protecting. Power of attorney allows. Power of attorney doesn't allow forgery." Noah interrupted. "Each use of those stamps constitutes a separate federal crime. Mail fraud, wire fraud, identity theft should I continue." Ethan finally stopped recording, the phone dropping from his nerveless fingers. I just thought. Mom said it was family money." "Did Mom also say it was legal to live in a house purchased with stolen funds?" I asked. "Because that makes you an accessory." "You little bitch," my mother hissed, stepping toward me. Officer Martinez moved between us immediately. "Ma'am, I need you to step back." "She's my daughter." "She's the victim in an active fraud investigation," Noah corrected. "And you just threatened her in front of law enforcement." Mrs. Carver chose that moment to appear in the doorway, holding a USB drive. "I hope I'm not too late. I have the security footage Ava requested 17 years worth of incidents, all time-stamped." "You were recording us," Gordon sputtered. "Security cameras on my own property that happened to capture your backyard, perfectly legal." She handed me the drive with a smile. The July 4th incident is particularly clear. You can see Lydia practicing Ava's signature at the patio table. My mother sank into her chair, the fight draining from her like air from a punctured tire. "You planned this." "No, Mom, you planned this." 7 years ago when you decided my inheritance was yours to take. I'm just ending it." Noah pulled out another document. "This is a temporary restraining order, effective immediately. You are not to contact Ava Sinclair, come within 500 feet of her person, residence, or workplace, or attempt any financial transactions involving her name or assets." "For how long?" Gordon asked, his business voice replaced by something hollow. "Until the criminal trial concludes," Noah replied, which, given the evidence, Could be several years from now. Ethan was crying now. Ugly sobs that reminded me of when he was 5 and didn't get the toy he wanted. Ava, please, I didn't know. You laughed, I said simply. When they hit me, you laughed and recorded it. You posted it online with hashtags. You knew exactly what you were doing. Officer Walsh was photographing documents from Gordon's office. Each snapshot another nail in their legal coffin. The papers showed everything, the forged additions to the power of attorney, the false loan documents using my name, even plans to have me committed if I became difficult. One more thing, Noah said, turning to address all 3 of them. Judge Cole has scheduled an emergency hearing for tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. You'll need to appear and explain these transactions under oath. I'd suggest getting lawyers, separate lawyers, since your interests may no longer align. The words hung in the air like a prediction. When the pressure came, when prison became real, they'd turn on each other. The family that had united to steal from me would destroy itself trying to avoid consequences. As we turned to leave, my mother found her voice one last time. I gave you everything. I made you strong. I looked back at her, this woman who'd twisted love into control, who'd sold my future for her comfort, who'd raised me to be broken and compliant. No, Mom, you tried to make me weak. I made myself strong, and now I'm strong enough to hold you accountable. The last thing I heard as we walked out was Ethan asking Gordon, can they really take the house? They could. They would. And that was just the beginning. The Harbor Light restaurant's private dining room looked exactly as it had 5 nights ago, down to the vanilla cake with strawberry filling waiting on the sideboard. But this time, I'd paid for everything. This time, I'd chosen the guest list. This time, I controlled the narrative. They arrived in clusters: aunts and uncles who'd watched me be slapped, cousins who'd liked Ethan's posts, family friends who'd whispered about my difficulties for years. Jules came early to help set up the projection screen. Mrs. Carver took a seat in the front row with the satisfaction of someone about to watch a long-awaited season finale. At exactly 7 p.m., I stood before them all. Thank you for coming to my second 31st birthday party, I began. I know you're wondering why I've gathered you here. Some of you think it's to apologize for my behavior last week. You're half right. This is about apologies. Aunt Patricia shifted uncomfortably. Uncle James checked his phone. They sensed the trap, but couldn't identify it. 5 nights ago, in this room, you watched my parents physically assault me. You watched my brother record it and laugh. You did nothing. I clicked the remote, and the projection screen lit up with Ethan's social media post, the video of me being slapped, his mocking caption, their likes and comments below. But that's not why you're here. You're here because you're witnesses to something bigger. The next slide, a timeline spanning 7 years. While I served 3 tours in Afghanistan and Syria, managing supply chains that kept soldiers alive, my family was busy with their own operation. I clicked through document after document. January 2018, $30,000 transferred from my trust while I was under fire in Kabul. March 2019, $45,000 while I coordinated earthquake relief in Syria. November 2020, $60,000 during COVID lockdown on base. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone whispered, "That can't be legal." You're right. It's not. The next slide showed the forensic signature analysis. Every withdrawal was authorized with a forged signature. My stepfather kept stamps of my signature in his cigar box. My mother practiced copying my handwriting at her patio table. My brother lived in a house purchased with my stolen inheritance. Ava, Aunt Patricia started. Surely this is a misunderstanding. Is it? I clicked to the next slide screenshots from Ethan's live stream the night before, with subtitles of my mother admitting they took what was necessary, and Gordon confirming the transfers. They thought they were ambushing me with a forced psychiatric hold. Instead, they confessed on camera. The room was dead silent now. The same silence that had followed the slaps, but with a different quality horror instead of complicity. Here's what you're actually witnessing tonight. I pulled up the legal documents. emergency asset preservation orders, frozen accounts, and a criminal investigation for fraud, forgery, and identity theft. The house Ethan lives in, seized. The money they stole, being recovered. Their freedom, pending trial. Uncle James stood up. This is family business. Ava, it should stay private. Like my humiliation was private. I clicked to the compilation of birthday party videos every family gathering where they'd mocked my service, my career, my unmarried status, my strength. You made my pain public entertainment. Now their crimes are public record. The next slide showed Judge Cole's order, every word legitimate and binding. But here's the best part. I continued, clicking to the security footage Mrs. Carver had provided. Some of you knew. Some of you saw my mother forge documents. Some of you heard them planning to use my deployment schedule against me. And you said nothing. The July 4th footage played my mother at the patio table, practicing my signature while Aunt Patricia watched and laughed about Ava thinking she's so smart with her military forms. Patricia's face went white. I wasn't. A witness to fraud who fails to report it can be considered an accessory, Noah said from the back of the room. He'd been waiting for his cue. I'll be contacting several of you for depositions. The door opened, and a court clerk entered with Judge Cole appearing on a tablet for remote proceedings perfectly legal for emergency matters. This is highly irregular, someone protested. So is stealing $600,000 from a veteran, Judge Cole responded, her voice filling the room through the tablet's speakers. I'm here to confirm the enforcement of the preservation orders and to inform all parties that the criminal investigation has been elevated to federal level due to the mail and wire fraud components. I walked to the birthday cake, the same one from 5 nights ago, now serving a different purpose. My mother said she made me strong. I told the silent room. She was wrong. She made me desperate, hypervigilant, convinced I was never enough. The Army taught me strength was competence, but this, I gestured to the evidence displayed around the room. This taught me that real strength is refusing to be a victim in your own story. I lit the candle's 31 flames flickering in the dim light. So here's my birthday wish. Spoken out loud so you all can witness it. May everyone get exactly what they deserve. The door burst open. My mother stood there, mascara streaking her cheeks. Gordon and Ethan behind her with their separate lawyers. You can't do this, she screamed. I'm your mother. Biologically, yes. Legally, you're the defendant in case number 23-4796. I blew out the candles in one breath. Happy birthday to me. Judge Cole's voice cut through the chaos. Mrs. Sinclair, Mr. Hale, and Mr. Sinclair, you're in violation of the restraining order by being here. Officers. The same officers from yesterday entered, handcuffs visible on their belts. We just wanted to explain. Gordon started. Save it for court, Judge Cole said. Officers, please escort them to the station for processing. Violation of a restraining order in an active fraud case is grounds for immediate arrest. As they were led out, Ethan sobbing, Gordon stone-faced, and my mother spitting curses that would have shocked her country club friends, I stood surrounded by witnesses who finally understood. The aunt who'd called me difficult, the uncle who'd said I needed to be softer, the cousins who'd laughed at my expense. They all saw it now, the careful, systematic destruction of a family that had tried to destroy me first. Jules raised a glass of water. To Ava, for showing us what real strength looks like. The toast echoed through the room, but I was already looking at my phone, where the bank showed my trust fund beginning to be restored, frozen assets returning to their rightful owner. Justice served colder than revenge ever could. The parking lot of Harbor Light Restaurant was nearly empty by 11:45 p.m. I signed the last document Noah needed, my real signature flowing across the victim impact statement that would be read at tomorrow's arraignment. The pen felt lighter than any weapon I'd carried in combat. The federal prosecutor wants to meet Monday, Noah said, organizing papers in his briefcase. With the evidence you've provided, your family is looking at significant prison time. Good. He studied me in the amber streetlight. Most people would feel guilty. Family is complicated. Family doesn't steal your deployment pay while you're dodging mortars. Family doesn't forge your signature while you're serving your country. Family doesn't try to have you committed for asking questions. My phone buzzed with notifications, the family group chat imploding, cousins choosing sides, aunts demanding explanations. I archived it all without reading. That chapter was closed. The restraining order is effective for 2 weeks initially. Noah continued. Given tonight's violation, it'll likely be extended through the trial. How long until I get the house back, Ethan's house, bought with my money? 60 days, maybe 90. Then you can sell it, keep it, burn it down if you want. I'll sell it. Use the money to start a veterans fund, something Grandpa would have approved of. We shook hands, professional and final. As Noah drove away, I stood alone in the parking lot where everything had started 5 nights ago. The same moon, the same November chill. But I was different. Not stronger, I'd always been strong. Just finally free to show it. Another text came through, this one from the unknown number that had guided me to evidence. Congratulations. Your grandfather would be proud. M.R. Marta Ruiz, the bank manager who'd known all along but needed me to discover it myself. I typed back, "Thank you for believing in justice. I believed in you. There's a difference." The restaurant's back door opened, spilling light across the asphalt. 3 figures emerged, escorted by police officers, my mother, Gordon, and Ethan being led to separate patrol cars after their processing. They'd been released on bail with ankle monitors, forbidden from leaving the county, their passports surrendered. My mother saw me standing by my car. For a moment, our eyes met across the distance. She opened her mouth, maybe to curse me again, maybe to beg, maybe to try one last manipulation, but the officer guided her into the vehicle before she could speak. Ethan was still crying, the sound carrying across the empty lot. Gordon walked like a man already calculating plea bargains and asset protection. They'd turn on each other before this was over. Their kind always did. The patrol cars pulled away, taillights disappearing into the Illinois night. Tomorrow, they'd wake up in a reality where their bank accounts were frozen, their reputation destroyed, and their freedom hanging by the thread of a judge's decision. Tomorrow, they'd understand what it felt like to be powerless. But tonight, I had one last document to sign, the lease for a new apartment in Chicago, closer to Nella's main office, with no forwarding address for anyone named Sinclair or Hale. A place where no one had keys but me, where the walls had never heard my mother's criticism or my stepfather's control. I got in my car, started the engine, and looked back at the restaurant one more time. Through the window, I could see the staff cleaning up the private dining room, throwing away the birthday cake no one had eaten, stacking chairs where my relatives had sat in stunned silence as their comfortable delusions shattered. My phone rang. Jules calling. "You okay?" she asked simply. "Yeah, for the first time in maybe ever." "Yeah. Good. See you Monday." And Ava. "What you did tonight was incredible." "No," I corrected. "What they did for 7 years was incredible, incredibly criminal. What I did tonight was just justice." After hanging up, I pulled out of the parking lot, heading toward the highway. In the rearview mirror, Harbor Light Restaurant grew smaller, then disappeared entirely. Ahead, the road stretched dark and open and full of possibilities that no one else could steal. At 12:03 a.m., I crossed the county line, leaving Northbridge behind. The radio played something soft and forgettable. I turned it off, preferring the silence. Not the suffocating silence of family dinners where truth was forbidden, but the clean silence of accountability served and battles won. My grandfather's photo was tucked into the sun visor, him in uniform, young and uncompromising. "We did it, Grandpa," I said to the empty car. "They wanted me weak. They needed me broken. But you left me more than money. You left me the knowledge that I deserved better." The highway opened up, empty lanes beckoning toward Chicago, toward the new apartment, toward a life where love didn't come with price tags and family didn't mean fraud. Behind me, Blue lights flashed in the distance, maybe another patrol car, maybe taking my family to face more questions, more consequences, more truth than they'd ever wanted to confront. But I didn't look back. Real strength wasn't about watching your enemies fall. It was about finally, simply, walking away. The dashboard clock turned to 12:30 a.m. November had never felt more like spring. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your experiences and perspectives mean everything to this community. Until next time, stay strong.